Okay, so really starting to come together now, and as you can see, we've got everything looking pretty much in shape. We've put the tail planes on, and then obviously we've glued those into place now. To be honest, nice fit. Rudder has been put on, everything else in there, so that's very nice indeed. We are going to do some little bits of sanding around here, but what I'm waiting for is really get this thing together. Then we can go around and take care of all the seams, joins, lumps and bumps, all in one. Wings system actually is really nice. That glued in really well overnight, so I'm very happy how both of those are. The alignment all looks good as well, so that's an important thing as well. So when you look right down the snot locker, as I call it, you can actually see that everything is, sorry, camera's off angle, so it's a little bit weird to see. Where are we? If I can get it in here. Sorry, everything's back to front when you try and show it, but as you can see, everything's lined up, so that's good. No problems with that at all. So what we can actually do now is carry on with the engine. Now the engine itself, as you can see, we've already got one together. Actually, or disappointingly, you don't see much of that detail, because don't forget, this is going to then clip up into the wing. So this guy is actually the left one, right one. Okay, so this is the right wing. As you can see, this is going to come up into here. So we are going to see a little bit, but no you're not, because actually we've got another part that is going to come off the front here as well, which is, which one is it? I don't remember which one it is now, which is this one. Is it this one? No, it's the other one, other side. Okay, so again, we are going to lose just a little bit of detail. So really what we're talking, when this is all together, which will be in here like this somewhat, okay, we're only going to see that much detail off the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait, and then we'll wire it all up afterwards. And then what we have here is a very nice removable cover that is going to go on like this, and then we can slide it off to actually reveal the detail, which is a nice touch, because we can either have it open or closed as we make our way through. But getting that together is a little bit fiddly. To be honest, as you can see down in here, we removed all the ejector pins from the inside. Again, I thought you might see them. No, you don't. Okay, so but if you wanted to, you could cut open some of these panels and actually have them as an open fit. We're not going to go totally over the top with this particular one, to be honest, purely because obviously time is running against us, and this isn't so much of a super build as we've done in the past. But I was thinking perhaps would be a nice touch. This entire panel is actually, you can actually, if you see it, see the latches in here, you could have it drop down to show off some of that engine detail, and again, just a better way of getting all that detail to be on show. All right, so I'm just going to take care of the actual tabs underneath. So what we want to do first, because to be honest it bit me slightly on the other one, is make sure that the two halves go together. Now these halves don't exactly go together very well, very nicely, or anything else like that. So if you can figure out if you've got a little bit of flash issues or something else on that, now is the time to definitely do this one. Again, this one's not lending itself very well to show me what's wrong, although I'm sure there's something else in there. The other thing as well is these little guys at the back, you might see I've painted one a little bit darker. Just make sure you don't break those off. They are very important. Okay, so putting this one together, first of all, if you have done it, sorry, but if you haven't, okay, pull the front engine intake section off. It makes lining things up a lot easier. Also, remember you've got a pin under here, okay, you've got the two to the side. Now the two to the side are obviously going to go in these, okay, where it's marked L for the left engine, okay, but that pin, make sure it faces straight down, and that way it will align up correctly, okay. So we're going to use the old plastic magic glue purely because it's a little bit slower setting. So we're going to put a drop just in there, and again this is going to flap around very nicely, okay. There's a little hole just at the top there, you can see that guy fits in there, and it sits in there like that, and as you can see it's quite a nice fit at the rear and everything else. Now the problem you have is putting in the other side, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to repeat that, drop a glue down in there, and then what we're going to do is try and line this up. So if we have it the right way around might help. So again, this is where it comes into, make sure that dot is pushed right in, because I have a feeling that wasn't in. It needs to be in there like that, okay? It needs to fit in there so it's halfway across. If it's not, you're not actually in the right location and things won't line up. So there it is, that is in there perfect. It wasn't before, so that's why we couldn't get it to line up. Now technically when you drop this guy down on the other side now, it will fit in there. And as you can see, that's quite a nice fit. You've got to join, but this is where the magic comes in, because when you get a bit of glue in here, that will disappear. Okay, so again, we're just going to pop a little bit of glue, and again, it dropped out, and that's what we're saying with this. As soon as it drops out, everything goes screwy. Okay, that's in there. That's in there as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to glue this, plenty of glue along here, because you just want to get it to get going and lock in. Okay, that is in there because I can feel it, it's not moving. This back bit, don't worry about at all for the moment, but what you're trying to do now is just center up this guy so you haven't got much of a seam. Now, I'm assuming that it has a seam in there. Okay, but again, this one at the rear, we're just making sure we've got a nice good fit. And as you can see, that detail is all very, very nice down in there. Okay, so we just want it to make sure it's in there and it's gluing and we're happy. Okay, so that's not too bad at all. So what we're going to do now is like we did with the other one, we're just going to put it down like that. And we're going to let the glue go off, get it to bite, because otherwise what happens is you touch it in a minute, it all pops apart and flies open and everything else. Then, as we can see we did down in here, this top one just goes in the top, and again, it's not a brilliant fit, but we're going to sand and feather some of this in just to make sure it's all good. Okay, so once that one's in, you're good to go. Then all we did was slide the front on, and then you can manipulate it, you can maneuver it around until you've got the best possible fit here at the front with this intake system. All right, so if this intake system is okay and you're happy with it, then you'll be in the right position, because then when the top cover comes in and fits in, actually, as you can see, it's pretty seamless all the way around there as well, if that is the right side even. Let's try the other one just to see if there is a difference. As you can see, you've got a very, very nice seal at the top, as long as this bottom one goes in. So that is all in there literally like that. Okay, so no problems with that at all. And just making sure we don't rush on. So then what you've actually got is that system. This is the, I've got to remember which one it is. This is the right engine. So we want the right intake part. This guy would then clip onto the top, literally just like that. Okay, again, actually it's not a bad fit, so then we're just going to glue this in. A little bit of a gap down at the back, so what we're going to do, get the glue going in there, and then what we're going to do is push it back in. As you can see, that takes care of that, and it's a nice little bit of detail at the top there and all the rest of it. So we give that a bit of a nudge and we make sure the spread is all good and everything else like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come in with a little bit of wiring and we're going to detail that off, because these covers can be a loose fit and everything else. But what we need to do is take out the ejector pin marks that are all in the inside of that guy. Okay, so there we go, that's on there just like that. So we'll leave that off to one side just to dry off. Okay, so once this has had another 10 minutes or so to dry, what we'll do is we'll repeat exactly the same for that one, get that one fitted up. Then we can look at actually marrying those engines up in there. We can look at this bit of photo etch, which I don't know, I don't think we're going to use it because we can't see it at all. It's not like we've got an engine removed. I think if you were doing a diorama type process and perhaps you were actually physically removing the whole engine, then we would use this little bit of photo etch. But honestly, I can't see the point of having to go around and actually make work for us to try and get it in when none of it's going to be seen whatsoever. Okay, so that's that done. At the same time, to be honest, I've also gone through and we've done the fuel tanks, so we just glued those together. They're going to need a little bit of cleanup. We've removed some of the other parts. We're going to come in a moment. We've got this guy down in here. If we're going to have it in the open position to show off that nose gun, which we will, we'll have to open it up, so we need to cut those. And also we've got all the gear out, so we can do deburring, removing the center seams, ejector pin marks, sprue gate marks, things like that to take care of it. And then what we can actually then start to do is get all the resin cleaned up on these guys for the wheels and the hubs to marry up with our undercarriage. So we are starting to push through quite nicely on this. It's coming together quite nicely. My only little thought at the moment is when we actually put this forward gun area in, obviously we've got to put weight in there. Again, it's not the best fit and join and everything else down in there like that. So we're probably going to have to do a little bit of work just to tidy that one up before we make our way through with it. So we've got lots of bits on the go at the moment. It's all coming together very, very nicely as we make our way through. So if we can get this one done, then we can work on the actual cockpit, get the glass installed, get those parts installed, and actually we're not that far off about getting into the paint bay. Okay, so nicely pushing on with this one. So we've installed both engines, and to be honest, underneath here we've actually put the well, sway braces, I suppose you'd call them, and the actual area for the drop tanks. The drop tanks, as I say, we've got together quite nicely, and these actually are a little push fit. They actually hold in there. We will glue them, obviously, but it's a nice touch. So what we need to do now is just to get in here and clean up these, obviously the seam lines, things like that. So a lot of these will just be a case of very lightly sanding over the top, just to slightly blend these down, get rid of any steps. Again, letting the sander do all the work when you're going over these, not to generate too much heat or anything else like that. And then it's just going to be a case of, I'll grab one, sanding sponge, very lightly, just blending those seams in together. It's not going to take too much down underneath there. They really are a nice fit. And then what we're going to do is exactly the same down in here. So by using a little bit of a skinny stick, we can then take out to see what we've actually got. We may need to pop in here, but I'm thinking it seems to be pretty sealed up, so I'm quite happy with how that is. We need to pop in and we need to do a little bit of rescribing and re-riveting and all the good things that are going to go along with this, but generally it's not too bad down underneath there. Same with these front ones as well. The wing tops actually I don't think are actually too bad. I might just get away with a light rescribe just on the edge, just to give you a line down in there, and that will be pretty good. Now those engines really are as simple as they pull in and then push up. You might need to just take a little slither out the back edge just to get that to come up. Again, that is going to be a panel line, but what we're going to do is sand, blend, and then put that back in just for a neater look. And I'll be honest with you, the right hand side went in no problem at all. The left did give me a few little headaches just to get that in there to blend in, so I did take a tiny little bit out of the back edge of the wing, and then that fitted in there a lot better. But there we go, that is a really nice looking 262. From a weight point of view, it's going to be a tail sitter clearly, but I don't think it's going to need much. There's quite a lot of weight up the front here, but we are going to put in obviously a little bit of nose weight, but that is also a nice separate fit. So what we're going to do is get most of it all together. We can work out its weights and balances then, and then we can put in what is necessary. Always put in a little bit more. There's nothing worse than when it's just almost a tail sitter and not. So same time as that was going on, we've put in the armour glass down here below, and we have masked this up. Now one thing I was going to show, the masking of this did take a little bit longer than normal, purely because there's no actual sort of engraving to this. It's there, but it's not very strong. So actually what we did, all right, let's come away, well, let's stick back down there if we can, okay, is, let me get that in there, give that a wipe, sorry. It's the armour glass that goes in the inside as well. But you might see we've actually gone along and I've used thin tape and just curved it around to get the edges, because you can't just put a blade in there and follow the line like we traditionally do, purely because there's no edge to follow. It's moulded in there and you can hold it up to the light and see what you're doing. And you might notice down on here we've got a mixture of thin tape and masking tape on here. This side we've managed to do in two, but the front here is notoriously bad. So actually what we've done is use thin tape and just mask out the actual area. Then we've gone in with the others, and to be honest, we need you just to trim this bit off just to square this guy up. So again, using a nice clean blade, you can go in. But I'll be honest with you, this is probably one of those few times where I wish I had the actual a proper masking set. You can get them for it, they're quite cheap, it's going to cost you a couple of quid. It would save a lot of time messing around trying to put these all in. Also, the front canopy, it has a very thin bar, but it looks like it's on the inside, not the outside. So what we're going to do is probably going to paint that in afterwards, or just use a piece of tape. Okay, and then that will give the effect of. Once those are done, I do have to say that this fits in beautifully, as in we've got a little bit of blue tack or white tack in our case just in here to hold it, but that is a fantastic join on there. There's no fit issues at all. And then when you come around to actually fitting up the main compartment ones, we've put these ones on already. Okay, you can see it all fits in there really very nice indeed. Now obviously they're just held temporary in there, but there we go, we've got a great looking 262 there. And actually, I must admit, I was never a fan of the 2-seat one, purely because it looks a little bit ugly. The streamlines, it's growing on me now. Actually, I think it's a lot more streamlined than we thought. So what we need to do now is obviously sand, and then we'll take care of any rescribing we got to do, any sort of re-riveting we want to add to this one, and everything else. Then we can get this nose section all put in and taken care, and then we can actually get the nose on there as well. It's quite important. We've already got it over there done. Then we're going to be looking at, obviously once it's all in, of using this little guy as well, which is actually a turned brass for all the aerials, but that's going to be the last thing to go on, purely because it is so fragile. Okay, so once that one's done, we can think about getting that into primer and starting to go through the paint stage. We've already done all the flaps, slats and everything else, but they will all go on after the paint job. The other thing we've been doing as well whilst we're waiting for things to dry is we've got the main gear down in here. So we've got the actual travel strut we've actually added on there. It's quite nice. Again, really not too bad at all. I was thinking maybe, you know, going down the metal route for these, if they're available. They are, but not for this particular kit. But I think in just the wheels, the hubs, again, actually the kit parts aren't too bad, all right? But these are really, really nice, got some fantastic detail. So we're going to be looking at doing those as well. So really, we've got lots of little jobs on the go at the moment, but we're waiting for that to totally dry off before we can get in there and sand, re-rivet, rescribe, and take care of all the little blemishes and any little problems we've got on the paintwork. Once those are done and we're happy, we'll get it buttoned up. So we will just pop in temporary for the moment, and we'll put some covers onto this and things like that, so we can get this actual nose system all put in here, and then that way we're not going to get any paint going through and everything else. But generally it is all going extremely well. Okay, these covers for the engines, for example, fit a beautiful, just a drop fit in there, and they fit absolutely fantastic. So it is really, really coming to life. I think by tomorrow we'll be in a situation where we're completely primed up, we can get going with the paintwork and everything like that. So I must admit, we've been pushing on very, very heavily with this one. So what we're going to do, going to start to just have a sand check, wingtips, things like that. There's a slight little mismold, if you remember when we was doing it. This little guy down here just needs a little bit of attention just to tidy that up. But then what we can actually do is get those things all sorted out so we're looking good, and then in primer we can check that, make sure we're happy with everything. If we are, we can push through with the paint stage. Okay, so we've been doing a lot of sanding work, just blending in. To be honest, the main areas are, as you'd expect, this seam just down under here, this tail one as it goes in, this one here, okay, so we just blended that in very nice, but also the major ones are like underneath here. Most of this is going to be hidden because it's a panel line, which is quite handy, but we've also blended in these guys around the front here, as you can see, just taking care of those, and then generally checking it all over, making sure we're happy of how it all goes in. Now, some of these you need to replace the panel lines in, others I don't think you're going to need to. Now, as we know, this was actually a puttied over wing. So they took care of basically all the riveting detail. So again, this is one of those things, it's personal choice. I really wanted to rivet it, but I've listened to the feedback, I put a little thing out with shall I, shan't I, and obviously the overwhelming is like 90% of you said, don't rivet it, keep it as is, keep it original and everything else like that. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we're not going to rivet that. I am going to put a little bit of riveting work down on the engines because they have got that, but certainly fuselage, tops of the wings, things like that, they're all puttied over, and the underside of the wings. You've got some nice big panel lines in there still and some access panels, but generally, as we know, it was smooth right the way over. So we are going to keep it somewhat genuine. I don't know, I'm slightly torn. I think it looks better with the riveting and everything else like that. Okay, so next thing up, this thing is a tail sitter. Not massive tail sitter, because obviously we've got fuel tanks which are going to go on the front here. Got a lot of weight. We've got a bit of metal going to be going on the front end as well for the aerials. I think it will pull in. It's saying 15 grams. I always give it a little bit more just to make sure. So to be honest, down here, as you can see, I have some old lead sheet which we borrowed from the roofers when they were doing the roof, and then I cut it into shape. So then what happens is it fits underneath here, okay, and just goes in. So what you can do, you can PVA glue it, which is obviously my chosen way. I don't like to use super glue purely because super glue over time goes off and can cause real problems. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab a blob just like that, a PVA glue. I can't remember which one goes in first. I think there's any particular right or reason. Okay, so then that will then sit in and then just pushes in at the back. Then we're just going to put another blob. Again, it doesn't have to be gallons of it. it is going to be held in place, and obviously this thing isn't flying, so it's not too much of a problem. Okay, and then this is going to fit in underneath that one. Remember, you are going to need a gap at the front because the part that goes in there is going to actually fill that, all right? And then last up, we've got this final piece which goes down between the guns, because obviously we're getting up to the height of the guns there. Okay, so again, we can just do like that. And then we're just going to put it in, and then once it's all in there, we just give it a light squash. Okay, just push that around a little bit. Okay, and then we'll just clean our fingers. And that sits in there like that. Okay, so if we just get rid of that, pop the lid on, this, and then hopefully this should fit. Now this is the other thing, we're using PVA glue. If you use PVA glue, you've got that time, okay, to be able to put things in there and do it. If you're using super glue, it's grabbed it. So then when you come to put these things on, they don't fit, okay? So what you can actually do then is, obviously we left a gap at the front of this so this front section can fit in. And then it goes over, and actually you can see it's not too bad a fit just down under there whatsoever. Okay, so that is in there now. So just to make sure we are all good, before we cut this guy up, it's going to be opened up. We're just going to put it in one just to fit in here, just so we know this all goes in there and it's going to fit in there very, very nicely. Now there is a little bit of a gap, but to be honest, we're going to have ours open, so I'm not really worried about it. As long as the front is on okay, we are good to go. So as this is all just sat in here for the minute, I'm going to come along with our glue, generous dollop. Okay, just all on there like that, and on the other side, not just moved. Okay, a little bit of a nudge, that's fine. Let's get this guy back in. Again, what it is, the lead in there is moving around, so it's pushing against everything, just trying to get out. So what we're going to do is just reset that. Now it's got a bit of glue in there, and it can all give us time to be able to maneuver around and sit and go off and everything just like that. So actually we're quite happy of how that's sitting. So we've got the nose section over here, which admittedly has been painted black, but that's because of something else we were playing with and we wanted to show something. So that's going to need a little bit of work just to get this to fit on. Oh, actually, I don't know, that is on there now. That's going to fit in there quite nicely as well. Okay, but obviously we don't want to glue that in yet because we've got lots going on there. Okay, so what we're going to do, we'll take this off because we don't want that to glue at all. And then just as it's in there, we can do at the top, so just down in here, just the drop, just let the capillary action flow around in there. So you literally just touch and flow in there. Again, maybe able to just nudge that a little bit more than I think it needing to. Okay, and there we go, that's the front one. So again, let that dry, sand, rescribe, a little bit of riveting if it has it. If it doesn't, obviously we won't, but that is in there now like that. So just to double check we're happy that it still closes in. Yeah, we're okay with that. So what we're going to do, leave that to one side, and then a quick balance check. You can see now it's tipping forward all the time. So we're happy that it's no longer going to be any threat of being a tail sitter. All right, so again, always just add a little bit more. Better to have a little bit too more and too less. In our case, if it was a problem, we can actually probably slip some stuff up in there. You could put little things in the drop tanks as well, just to lay down the front, and even stick them into the sort of the engines themselves. Little slithers, these little bits we've got left over, always keep these, because sometimes you get that thing where it's just not enough. Little slithers of this, and you can just poke them down into little areas where you'd never thought you'd really need them. But trust me, sometimes you do. It just takes that little bit more than what you were thinking of, or you might have added a little bit of resin down the tail end, things like that. Before you know it, it's tail sitting. And again, there's nothing worse than having to have a pole at the back to hold it up. So there we go. I'm going to carry on, finish off all the work on that, and then what we can do is get it over to the spray bay and we can actually get some primer on it. Okay, so I have been round and we've sanded, done a few little things to it. To be honest, the only real problem we had was this seam along here. So I went a little bit old school, super glue purely for speed, let that dry naturally, sanded it back. So then all we've had to do is pull in the actual panel lines to rescribe those in, and we've taken care of that. To be honest, they are very nice, easy panel lines to do. Underneath the back here, we went through and we've put those in. We've also put a center one down there. It looks like it does have it. So we put that actual center seam down in the back there. It's better than the normal seam and it hides it as well at the same time. We've rescribed around the actual engines, so we've taken those for all the ones we've damaged where we've actually sanded and blended in these bottom areas, things like that, okay? And just generally taken care of it. I have put a little spot of riveting just around this back end as we went through, but I've been very good. I haven't riveted anywhere else, okay? So from that point of view, we've buttoned it all up. We've gone through the motions of it. We're happy that it was all here. We're all good to go. We've got a little bit of blue tack down the back here. This is just what's going to hold the canopy in place whilst we paint it. I want a nice faded edge, and what we can actually do if you wanted to at any point is to drop this and actually just mask the entire area and do that. But sometimes I like to put the actual canopy on just so everything paints and weathers together. Okay, so we can just sit that in there like that. Once you get them all lined up, there we go, that's all in. So we are in theory ready for paint. Flaps, slats and all the rest of it, they are separate. I've got them in a little tub, keeping them all nice and safe. We'll paint those in a moment. So what we want to do next is actually get the primer coat onto it, just to check everything off. Now for the primer, we're just going to use a straightforward XF19 grey right the way over this one, just so we can come back, have a look, check it for seams. The reason we're using a grey colour, we want it to be neutral, i.e. the bottom's going to be black on this anyway, so it won't matter, but the top, we're going to have the body, is going to be a nice light colour. We've got the green on the wings, we've got a little bit of browns and the blacks and things like that, so it's easier to have a neutral colour than it is to come in with something a little bit darker. Alright, so from that point of view, no problems. What we need to do first though is put the cockpit interior colour in first so it shows through, because obviously we put grey, you'd have a grey inside to your glass. So for that, we're going to use a little bit of RLM 66 just to put that all in there to give that nice dark grey colour. Then we'll put the primer right over the top of everything, and then we can go around and have a look. I'm not going to mask up the insides of the engines, but if you wanted to, you could just pop in there with a little bit of tape or a little bit of something, sponge in there just to mask those up. What I'm going to do is spray it away from it so it has a natural worn look to it right the way through. But basically, that is the construction phase finished off and everything else like that. The only thing we do need to do is, it reminds me by flipping it over, we have got a mask up down under here, and for that point of view we can actually use the kit parts, because on one of the kit sprues, there it is, we have the gear wells as it being shut. So what we can actually do is we can pop this little guy off of here, and we can use this to actually our advantage of for the actual gear area. The nose one, I'll probably pop a little bit of sponge in there, something else like that, but it's dead handy when you have a gear up option, because what we can actually do, I think we'll just need a little bit of a sand on that one, is use this, okay, with a little bit of tack inside. Okay, so we just flip this guy over. Probably the best way of doing this down here too. So what we'll do, we'll just check it first to make sure it is going to go. Okay, so obviously we're not going to be using this well, but it'll be enough to protect all that stuff down in there. So what we'll do, we're just going to do one in each, I think. It'll be the easiest. We're just going to go one there. And then another one in here. So this guy should, in theory, just fit in between. And we give a little bit of a nudge. There we go. Sorted, no problem at all. So there we go. Over to the spray bay now. We'll get this thing all done around the canopy area, then we get the masking work done, and then we can start to work on the camo.